This podcast is recorded on stolen and unceded Aboriginal land.
We acknowledge the First Nations and elders of this country and join their calls for justice. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land.
Serious Danger live, reporting next to a dead body, as you do, because we're tough on crime. That was my opening for the show.
I guess we should I guess, whenever we've started recording a podcast, I haven't checked whether there are any dead bodies near me, but
That's true.
I'm like Brad Battin. I don't give a shit. The Victorian opposition leader, Brad Battin, has defended taking a detour on his way to work to hold an impromptu press conference at the scene of a fatal stabbing in Melbourne's southeast, saying he will continue to visit active crime scenes.
Good, great, good to know. That's what I want my fucking wannabe premier doing.
What do they say about people always returning to the scene of the crime?
People returning to the scene. Well, when you sent me this headline that was like opposition leader does press conference, whatever it was, 30 meters away from dead body, yep. I thought, forgive me for thinking that it was on accident. But no, it was deliberate. He's on his way to work, hears that a man has been stabbed, like early reports that a man has been stabbed, and goes, better head there and do a press conference.
Quick, turn this Battin mobile around. I got to go to make political advantage out of a man's death.
Very good. Very good. And what was the press conference basically to be like Labor is failing and that's why this person is dying? Keeping in mind that he did this press conference, as I understand it, before next of kin had even been contacted.
Yeah. 39-year-old dude stabbed at a petrol station. He's lying there in the morning. He was treated by paramedics but died at the scene. Battin told reporters he heard reports of the stabbing on the radio, decided to make a detour on his way to Parliament. He did a press conference with the cameras and spoke with police at the scene. He said he was unaware at the time that the victim's body was still at the scene and his next of kin were yet to be contacted.
I'm just going to say, even if the man's body wasn't still at the scene, you're a fuckwit for doing this. And tough on crime brain is a disease.
If you want to do a press conference about it, you can do it anywhere, really. But yes, you're running the risk there that you're near a dead body, my friend. Pretty deeply insensitive, you asshole. Would it surprise you to know that he used to be a cop?
Well, it's cop brain, isn't it? Like, got to get our press release out. Someone's fucking died. How can we use this to our political advantage? These people are
we need
sick.
More powers.
These people are ill. Absolutely. Yeah. We need more powers to hold press conferences.
Victorian Government Minister Colin Brooks said it was appalling that Battin stopped at the scene. He should apologise to the families, Brooks said. But Battin said he had no regrets about the press conference and would not apologise. If I'm out and about and there's a crime scene and I pop past, I will be making sure that people know what is going on in the state. I will continue to do that. I'll continue to be the voice for Victoria Police. For a minister to be more worried about me than they are worried about the fact that we've had people stabbed in the streets here in Victoria, that's a disgrace.
Wow, that's the disgrace. My bad. I thought the disgrace was you using this man's death to your political advantage, but I'm just a stupid lefty.
Tasmania has for a long time been the laughing stock of the bigger states because of our inability to get stuff done. The nickname when I play cricket is, you're heading back to Slowbar. And we keep proving people right. It is embarrassing.
We're stuck with the hosts of Chapo Shithouse podcast.
Serious danger to Australia.
And welcome to all of you stupid lefties. This is, of course, Serious Danger, a podcast about green politics in Australia. It's not an official Greens Party podcast.
No.
Produced by Michael Griffin, as always. I'm Emerald Moon. I'm on Yagara and Turrbal country. And that's Tom Ballard. Hi, Tom.
Hello, I'm in Naarm on Wurundjeri and Bunurong country, the crime capital of Australia.
Crime capital, exactly.
Where no one is safe.
Well, the LNP here in Queensland, so crime's not happening anymore. It's strangely absent
That's so good.
From the News Corp papers. It's amazing, isn't it, what David Crisafulli can do. Of course, this week we're checking in quickly first on a couple of bits and pieces from the week, including what the fuck is going on in Tasmania and the March for Australia, scheduled for the 31st of August. But then we are getting productive and we are talking about this week's Economic Roundtable with economist.
This is why we need him. This is why we need him. We're out of our depth here.
Exactly. I've never heard this word before. What is this? And Executive Director of the Australia Institute, Dr. Richard Dennis. It's going to be a very fun chat. First of all, we have some new Patreon subscribers to say welcome to say welcome to this dirty lefty haven, this pit of despair and debauchery.
Are you okay?
I'm good. Lockie, Pugkin Soup,
Mm-hmm.
Bridget, Victor, and Queenslander turned South Australian have all signed up at patreon.com/seriousdangerau to support the show. This is the way that the show runs. It is where we get all of our income from to pay our producer Mike's wages and keep the show going. So thank you very much. It's only $3 a month if you do want to support the show, and you also get access to bonus content, a bonus episode every couple of weeks. We just put one out. One just came out on the late Thursday. If you were closely watching your feed, you would have seen it. An update from our WA correspondent, Jared Mazza from Big State, about everything that's going on in WA, the gas stuff, Murrujaga, rock art, cultural heritage protections, getting wrongfully arrested for looking like a white climate activist, etc. It was a good chat.
Are you just going to gloss over the patron name Queenslander turned South Australian? How does that make you feel? Isn't that a betrayal of everything you believe in?
Oh, it would be if it was Queenslander turned Victorian or Queenslander turned New South Welshman.
Oh, okay, right. But you don't mind Queenslanders moving to SA?
Oh, at least it's original.
I know. I've never heard of that before in my life.
No one's doing that.
I don't think I've ever met anyone in Adelaide go, "Oh yeah, I used to live in Brisbane." Like, what?
Yeah.
Why'd you come here?
No, I respect you. But you know what? You'll always be a Queenslander at heart. It's wherever you played your first game of league or professional league or whatever it is, however state of origin works. That's where you're really from.
The day started badly for Labor. The crossbench helped elect the Liberals' Jackie Petrusma Speaker, while the government supported a Greens MP for chair of committees, both times snubbing Labor's nominee. Then Labor leader Dean Winter made his move.
That the House, one, does not have confidence in either the Premier, the Honourable Jeremy Rockcliffe, nor his government, and two, has and will continue to have confidence in the member for Franklin, the Honourable Dean Winter.
Labor, well aware its motion would not succeed, but keen to paint the crossbench as having confidence in the Liberals.
It can be spun however you like, but a vote against this motion today is a vote of confidence in this Tasmanian Liberal government that has let you down before.
Mr Winter reminding the Parliament of the many reasons it voted no confidence in Mr Rockcliffe just a couple of months ago, and echoing Mr Rockcliffe's very words from that day.
This day, it might not end well for me, but this day will define this Premier for the rest of his political career. He will have the stigma of being a sellout, of giving in to green demands on racing, salmon and forestry.
Okay, what's going on in Tasmania? To be quite honest with you, I didn't follow this, and then Tom updated me on Thursday. Quite a bit has happened. So if you, like me, haven't been paying attention, here is your update, because Tasmanian Parliament is back, and quite a few stuff. Jesus, fuck, am I having a stroke?
Quite a few stuff happened bad on Apple Isle.
Depend how you think. Bad if you are Dean Winter, potentially. So
Dean Winter is dead, everybody. That's your headline.
Winter, rest in peace. Because he stuck by his principles.
Rest in
like
piss, I say. Jesus
loser.
Christ.
So, okay. After moving an unsuccessful no confidence motion, another one, they tried again, they failed this time against Liberal Premier Jeremy Rockcliffe when Tasmanian Parliament went back after their election. Tasmanian Labor has now spilled its leadership. The Premier is Jeremy Rockcliffe, and Dean Winter is out, and he is, of course, ding, 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 blaming the Greens.
This is amazing. Like, in the annals of history of Labor shitting on the Greens and blaming the Greens for everything, I think this could be some of the finest work I've ever seen in my life.
It could be. Yeah, this is the Labor blaming the Greens Olympics. And this guy is going for a gold medal. He really I have to ask, I'm stumbling over my words today, but truly, is this guy okay? Because he seems to just be having a full meltdown.
What, before he got replaced, wasn't he saying that he would like tear the party or he'd burn the party down or something? There were threats
Oh,
that would
was
blow
he?
the party up or something. Like he was, truly on a tear. Still clinging to the idea that all this is because of his incredible principles. It's truly bizarre.
Amazing. Yeah, I didn't even catch that. So, okay, this week, what's happened is on Monday, it's reported the Greens have ruled out support for Labor's no confidence motion in Jeremy Rockcliffe as Premier, which basically meant the motion was dead. And they ruled it out because Labor had simply refused to talk to them, refused to negotiate them, despite Tasmanians having elected the makeup of Parliament as it is. Labor pretend they do not see it and didn't want to make any concessions to the crossbench, including the Greens, whereas the Liberals were willing to. So on Tuesday, Labor moves this motion, no confidence motion. Tasmania's 11 crossbenchers, including the Greens, voted no in unison. This then prompted a press release from Dean Winter in which he described the Greens as, quote, the enemy of the working people.
Jesus Christ.
Did you see as well? I saw this was reported in the ABC, and I'm sure if anyone was following the debate, they could attest to this, that Dean Winter was also like just heckling and interjecting throughout the whole debate. Apparently, when Rosalie Woodruff was speaking, he was heard going, oh my God. He's like yelling when Vicar Bailey is speaking, saying, you're trying to shut down industries, to which the Greens MP, Vicar Bailey, responded, you want to talk about enemies, Mr. Winter? I'm starting to think you are your own worst enemy. When Labor fails, it's always someone else's fault.
Correct.
Well said. Well said. Do we want to talk about this? Because he's obviously referring there to the enemy of the working people line and the basis for that. Because that's Dean Winter's whole thing. He's like, we think salmon farming, complete disruptive, pushing the extinction of the Maugean skate, all of that, our refusal to phase that out makes us the friend of the working people and the Greens the enemy, right?
Yes, and greyhound racing as well, which I believe Rockcliffe government suggested that they would do a review into that industry. So not even any kind of, concrete action, but at least some vague idea that they might make some kind of move to look into one of the cruelest industries that we have, industries that have been tried to be banned in New South Wales and then been backed. Then Liberal governments have backflipped because of
that's right.
incredible lobbying and our distorted democracy. As someone on Twitter put it, I forgets me now, says, Labor stands by its principles of trying to kill as many dogs as possible, and they will not compromise on that. And you got to respect it.
I have to say, I think I thought that was reported as it being phased out or banned. Although I guess so. What it is that the Tasmanian government will cease funding greyhound racing by 2029, which effectively winds up the industry because it was apparently reliant on taxpayer dollars. So that's a good start. But yeah, if you don't keep feeding public taxpayer money into an industry that is based upon or predicated on animal cruelty, you're an enemy.
You hate them. Yes, well, we know. And we know working people love gambling as well, so we can't do anything about the gambling industry. I mean, It's just such a disgrace. And it's like, okay, mate, if you don't want to compromise on that, you want to work on fucking literally anything, because the position you've adopted now means that you don't have government and those industries that you care so much are going to be, mildly reformed by this, and the Liberals are going to remain in government. So that's on you, Dean Winters. That's you, mate. That's not the Greens. That's fucking you. And the idea that you can cling to the sense that these are your principles and that this is a vindication of the Labor Party's position and its future is just insane. Particularly, as we mentioned previously on the show, this is the future of Tasmanian politics. You are not going to win a majority in your own right. You are going to have to negotiate with the crossbench, including the Greens, in the future. And furthermore, his failure is underlined by the fact that he lost independents as well. Independents that apparently were, very sympathetic, very much up for that conversation about supporting a Labor minority government, eventually saying, no, we can't in good conscience say that we have confidence in these people because they're insane.
Yeah, and even saying, in response to him then coming out and saying, the Greens are the enemy of the working people, you had independents saying, just get it, basically being get it together. You can't just throw nonsense around like that. Effectively, no one is buying this, right? And I mean, even it seems Tasmanian Labor is not buying Dean Winters what Dean Winters is selling anymore, because they on Wednesday elected a new leader. It's no longer Dean Winters, it's Joshua Barton Willie, which it's a cute little name, who is a 41-year-old former primary school teacher. Don't know much else about him, but maybe we will.
I think he's from the left. He's from the Labor left, apparently.
Doesn't really, whatever that means.
Yes.
But yeah, like, so the deputy leader, Anita Dow, straight up came out and said, yes, Labor not doing a deal with the Greens has cost us government. And I think she meant that in that, like, we stood by our principles and didn't do a Greens, and that's what cost us government. But, like, pretty powerful to have that statement on the record, right? Like, that is what has caused Labor to lose, in contrast with all of the messaging that they've used for years and years, like that it's about, the Greens are the ones who will cause a Liberal government because they won't work, because they'll, I don't know, in some way, but it's like Labor's refusal to negotiate. They have lost themselves government.
Yes. And it's important to underline, like, I guess we'll never know, but like what that deal would look like. I genuinely think Labor could have, some scrap. They could have offered some scraps. They could have offered some pretty mild reforms, some
Just
pretty
anything.
sort of like easy, low-hanging fruit stuff. Like, honest, I don't know. I don't want to speak to the Tasmanian Greens. I'm not across all the ins and outs, particularly. And, maybe the Tasmanian Greens would have held out for something, really significant. I don't know. Probably not, because the Greens have said, we want to support a Labor minority government. We're up for that, along with the independents on the crossbench, or the progressive ones at least. We want to make that happen. But it is completely unreasonable, completely untenable to expect that party to roll over for absolutely nothing. And people are saying to the Greens, why don't you compromise more? Like, we've got nothing here. We've got 0% of our policy agenda. Well, you can't compromise down from zero. Otherwise, we might as well just join the Labor Party.
Well, the Greens have compromised. They don't want to support a Liberal government, but the Liberals, believe it or not, came and said, yeah, we're offering policy concessions, reviewing salmon farming, discontinuing funding for greyhound industry, and abandoning plans to expand native forestry, while Labor was unwilling to do so. So if you want to talk about compromise, actually everyone in this situation is compromising in some way, apart from Labor. That's the crux of it.
Incredible. And the idea that, yes, that looking at these industries, looking at the clear evidence which expresses how harmful they are, and how short their lifespan is, like they are going to end at some point in the future. Yeah. And the idea that, addressing that or finding a way to transition workers, absolutely looking after workers, that's important. Transition workers out of these very harmful industries. That's Labor business now. That's your job, not to defend and maintain these harmful industries forever, no matter what. That's actually betraying workers and misrepresenting the reality of the situation and not planning for the future. So you are actually selling out workers, Dean Winters, in the long term.
Absolutely. And I think once again, it's like the thing with coal, where it kind of betrays this really shallow understanding that Labor actually has of the working class in this current moment. Like, Labor is, the Labor Party is so divorced from the reality of working people's lives that they have this kind of like symbolic ideological idea that working people in those industries just like they love digging up and processing coal, or like they love working with rotten salmon heads. Like, that's their lifeblood. It's like, no, people like having like a steady income, good condition, like food on the table. That's it. And it's like, if you can provide that, instead of just you just have these weird symbol, because it is all politics to you and it is all symbolism and like these abstract ideas that, you get tied up in propping up these fucking companies. Also because usually those companies are in your ear or in your, election funds. Anyway, I did have one question, which was like,
it's just, Daddy, will the Greens stop us from sending the Maugean skate into extinction? That's my dream, Daddy.
Yeah, that's right. It's all I've ever wanted. Did the Greens, like, they had said we want to support a Labor government, but they must not have ruled out supporting a Liberal government, which begs or kind of made me wonder, would this have been able to happen in an election like the federal election, where the Greens came to that election saying, we are ruling out any support for a Dutton Liberal government, like for a Liberal government, we will never do that. And as we spoke about, in doing so kind of trade away their negotiating power, trade away their ability to get concessions like the Greens have been able to do in Tasmania. And I've often been like, it's still just not worth it. Like it is the right move to position yourself clearly and say we'll never support a Liberal government. But looking at what's happened in Tasmania was probably the right move, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very unique situation in that Jeremy Rockcliffe became premier because of the sort of incumbent bias and convention there. So even though he doesn't have a majority, the governor eventually says, "Well, you have a right to prove it, and then test the confidence of the parliament on the floor of the floor of the parliament, right?" And I assume the Tasmanian Greens are saying, we're not explicitly supporting an LNP government here. We can't support this no confidence motion because we don't have confidence in the alternative. And that's what the motion was. The motion was no confidence in Jeremy Rockcliffe and forming a Labor minority government. So it's quite a unique situation and a little bit different, as opposed to a hung parliament after an election at the federal level in which someone has to form government. The difference in Tasmania is that Rockcliffe got back in because of the incumbency sort of convention. And then it was about testing the confidence in that particular arrangement, I suppose.
I think that's true technically, but I think in reality, like if you look at the effect of it, like the Greens are having a say in who's the premier there. Like, and I think, they could have gone to that election and gone, we will not support the Liberals. Like, we will not support a Liberal being the premier. But they didn't. So
no,
I don't
that's
know.
True.
It is interesting. And of course, yes, now they are in a position where they are implicit, like in many ways associated with and attached to this new, continuing Liberal government in Tasmania, and have to deal with the fact that the public may blame them, and I'm sure Labor will try to blame the Greens for how the Liberals continue to run that state. And obviously, Labor is already out there. They're talking about, we've now squashed the Liberals' scare campaign. It's a success. They had this scare campaign about the Labor being in bed with the Greens, and now it's the Liberals and the Greens who are in bed with each other. So it is obviously a challenge. But I guess at any point, it's true that the crossbench could, if they worked if Labor was willing to, but like they and Labor could still move another no confidence motion and vote the Liberals in theory.
Yeah, this is the thing. There's no time limit on this.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, I mean, the political calculation or the political ability to sort of manufacture that is probably running out. You sort of have a closed window as to when you can suddenly change government, at least how politically tenable that is. But yes, if they could bring in if they negotiate with the Greens of the crossbench, offer some level of concessions to recognise their legitimacy as voices of the people in the parliament that you don't have a majority in, you could in theory turn around a no confidence motion and I guess either send people back to the polls or convince the governor to be like, no, we've got the confidence of the parliament here and we can form our own minority government. But this is not a Liberal Green government. Let's make that very clear. Labor will smear this as a Liberal Green government. That's not what it is. And it's important to note that the Greens will be in a stronger negotiating position. The Liberal Party will need the Greens in order to pass legislation. So, we will, play a role in fending off the worst of this Liberal government. Absolutely. But
I liked the way that Lucy McDonald put it in the ABC on talking about Dean Winters, referring to this coronation of a Liberal Green government. And she said, quote, Labor will no doubt have fun with that from the opposition benches.
Oh.
And it's like, that's the thing,
That's it. There it is.
They fucked it. Like,
you
at
had
the
a
end
chance.
of the day.
This is entirely on you, my friend. And keep in mind, Tasmanians blame Dean Winters for bringing on the election in the first place, and Labor got the worst result in the state's history at the polls.
Yeah.
Okay, their vote went backwards after this. That's how, upset and horrified Tasmanians were with the status quo. Labor brought on the election, vote goes backwards, then they can't even be bothered to negotiate in order to secure power. So it's entirely on them.
Yes.
On the 31st of August.
31st of August. August 31st.
So what's going on with the 31st of August?
Okay, turning quickly to the March for Australia, quote unquote, that is scheduled for the 31st of August. What's the march about, Tom? Because no one can agree. What's it about?
I hear it's a bunch of everyday Australians and patriots hitting the streets to talk about how great Australia is. And also Nazis.
And also, maybe also Nazis. Well, okay, so we didn't get a chance to talk about this a couple of weeks ago in the context of the Sydney Harbour Bridge march. We were talking about this, and that's where the first, little balloons of this alternative rally started to emerge from the soil. But we ran out of time. But it's worth kind of going back to the origins of this, because what it was then was like the Daily Mail basically reporting on what appears to be like a random TikTok, some random dude posting on the internet. And of course, the Daily Mail goes, this should absolutely be an entire article. And it was this veteran from Adelaide, Sam Bamford, who the post was about, I would say, lots of things. And that's important to the law of this march, I suppose. But he's going, okay, first of all, he's like, what if I organised a rally on the bridge about homelessness, unchecked immigration, and support for veterans?
Brilliant.
The article said, Mr. Bamford questioned why protests about overseas conflicts are applauded while those focused on domestic issues like homelessness, housing, or veteran welfare are often ignored or attacked. Are protests about homelessness?
No, they're not.
Veteran welfare ignored or attacked?
Not even once. I've never seen that happen once. I would say people who talk about veterans and veteran welfare are regularly hailed as absolute heroes across the board.
Yeah. This is one of those things, again, where it's just making up your own enemies, unfortunately. But then also this dude is like, this is the idea of why are we talking about what's going on overseas when like we've got people sleeping on the streets in Australia. And I get that kind of instinct. Not that I agree with it, because people are people. But yes, people are like, why aren't we talking about what's happening here on our doorstep that maybe we can do more about? And so that's one angle at the start of this call for an alternative rally, is like focus on Australia. But then this dude is also in the same post start talking about the 5 million children who are trafficked into pedophilic sex rings internationally, which he's done podcasts about. And this is what we need to be talking about, but also focus on Australia. So like already, even in this one dude's post that the Daily Mail turns into a whole fucking article, and then obviously the other outlets pick it up and it becomes a whole news story. It is already an insane, like completely nebulous, unfocused mishmash of just stuff. He has no idea really. He's just blurting.
Well, yes, because it's all stemming from just a vague grievance, just the outrage at the idea that hundreds of thousands of people would hit the streets against a genocide. Like, that's wrong. That's some kind of win for the left. We have to come up with our own response. And whatever grievance is in my head, I'll put that out.
Well, and also, I mean,
and blurt it.
To be fair, you could also acknowledge it's partially arising from genuine grievances where maybe he's been fucked over by a system that doesn't value people that we send overseas to fight in wars and that doesn't provide housing and services for people. Like, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, then the neo-Nazis come in. And they're like,
the one thing we didn't want to have happen.
This is the one thing we didn't want to happen.
They're like, hey, wait, someone mentioned Australia? Like, ears prick. And the Daily Mail's onto it. So we've got an audience. So neo-Nazi Thomas Sewell, at some point between that and now, claims the rally, describes it as, quote, our public rally. He's posting on Telegram about it, calling for, quote, white Australians to assemble, quote, against the traitors and foreigners. There is, I mean, you could spend, and I'm sure a lot of people who report on this in far more detail than we do and far better than we do can go through the timeline and see what happened here. But obviously, like the far right has co-opted this rally, and I think there's been some discussion with some of these leaders, this Beck Freedom person, that's what she goes by online, saying that, I reached out to this guy and said, do you want our help? I have connections, I'll put you in touch with people. And she said that he basically was happy to, quote, palm it off. And so they take this away from, like, it's already completely divorced from what it was, which was one dude saying a bunch of vague things that a lot of people can probably see something in there that they relate to. They take that and go, this is our Nazi rally now. But the problem is then it's like when the left, or when anyone points out that it's a Nazi rally, people go, that dude's not a Nazi. And all these, the thousands and thousands of people who that kind of might have resonated with, they're not Nazis. And it's bullshit to say that this is a Nazi rally when there are, thousands of ordinary people who aren't Nazis who were supporting it, which is true. But who is leading it? It is now the Nazis.
That seems like a relevant detail. And yes, surely we could differentiate between people who might not be committed Nazis who find themselves having sympathy and being attracted to Nazi ideas or fascist ideologies in order to address, the problems they perceive in our society. There is obviously the fascist response to that stuff, which certainly seems like lots of people who might be heading along to this rally are sympathetic to.
Well, but this is the thing, and I think, Tom Tanuki in particular has done some good content about this, as he always does. But the vast majority of people who are interested in this rally aren't actually, they're not even really buying into that fascist ideology. They're not buying into the Nazi fascist ideology, because that's not how the Nazis present it, because they present it as, quote, anti-immigration. But even that's not true. It's true that, unfortunately, a lot of Australians think that immigration is the problem. That's a whole other discussion. But these Nazis aren't even anti-immigration. They're white supremacists. That's actually even, that's a whole other level that the vast majority of these people would not agree with. And that's why you've then got people from, the quote unquote freedom movement who might be anti-immigration and who might also be worried about the millions of children being trafficked into pedophilic sex rings internationally, etc. But they're denouncing it because they're like, oh, the Nazis though? I don't really love that these guys are involved. And so who knows, if the rally will even end up happening. But I think it is just a really interesting example of the way that, the modus operandi of the National Socialist Network, neo-Nazis in Australia, that it seems, again, what they do very well is they see it. There was this template, there was this massive bit of power, this powerful tool, which is a rally that already had huge media coverage and support effectively. News Corp, the Daily Mail goes, we're going to make this a thing. We create this tool that actually no one is even ready or keen to facilitate. That guy who posted this, he wasn't going to organize an actual rally. He was just musing. He was just pondering online.
Right.
They create this
tool. It was
tool.
a troll idea. Oh, you were doing that rally. What if I do my own rally? That was it.
Hypothetically. And then the Nazis go, yeah, we'll take that. It's already got huge attention, huge interest on the base, on an ideological basis that's actually different, albeit connected to what the Nazis are saying. And they're like, yep, we'll come in and take that. Thank you very much. And now we've got a website for it, and we have got tens of thousands of people who are signed up on the Facebook, and nobody really knows what they're rallying about, but they're angry. And if we can get even a tiny percentage of those people funneled into our neo-Nazi project, that'll be a win for us.
Yeah. And they see that, in that clip that Purple Ping has posted, the audio from a meeting between these people, including Beck Freedom, they see that sort of pipeline, right? You start with this, you're worried about mass immigration, and that which threatens our European heritage, or which threatens our Australian heritage, which is our European heritage. And then before you know it, you're worried about our white heritage. And that's the main game. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
I think, look, the messaging, we just need to, and look, I understand why some people are saying, oh, it's not about race. Though people like that, they're scared. But if we break it down, this is how I tried to explain it to somebody. I said, okay, so protect Australian heritage, culture, way of life. The next step, protect European culture, heritage, way of life. The next step is protect white heritage. So it all means the same thing. It's just different ways to put it. Australian heritage, by saying it that way, it is more appealing to the public. It's going to deter them from saying, oh, it's a Nazi rally, blah, blah, blah. That's all it means. Australian is white, is European white.
She's basically, they say in this clip, and this is Purple Ping has posted, it's a X Spaces thing. Where they talk on audio, and it's that people who are saying, oh, it's not about race are quote unquote scared, and this is a neo-Nazi project, is to get people from, I'm worried about immigration because I think that it's making housing more expensive or something like that, to I'm worried about white heritage. And this is the same person that she's, in these spaces saying we need something like the Cronulla riots, we need violence, which is the point at which finally News Corp and 2GB go, hey, should you have said that thing about us needing another Cronulla riots? And do you regret that? And she goes, oh yeah, I really shouldn't have said that. But by that point, she of course they fucking mean that. They want a violent neo-Nazi, that is what these people want. But I don't know. I do, obviously, I don't want to fall into that thing where you blame the left for what the neo-Nazis are doing, by no means. But it does, I think, have some lessons for us on how the right works and what we need to be conscious of in the way they work. For example, the fact that the key images that are used on this website that's been set up for this march are the screenshots of the masked people burning the Australian flag at that Melbourne rally recently that we discussed. And as I said then, I'm I don't really care that you're burning the flag. I kind of get your point. But you need to be conscious that when you highlight and when you center the symbolism and the culture war stuff like that, the right fucking love it. And the right are more conscious than it seems so many on the left are of the power of unity and kind of ignoring a whole bunch of points of difference for the point of getting people on side. They do it in a really dishonest way. They are lying to people when they get people on board with this rally. Because they're not telling them what it is really about. And I don't think that the left needs to lie to people to get them on board. But I do think it's worth noting that in that X Spaces clip, one of these guys is explicitly saying effectively that if people could have some unity and if, the migrant and multicultural community kind of was able to respond to the issues that people were talking about here, like housing affordability, etc., then we, the racists, are fucked. He says, quote, if the migrant or multicultural community co-ops the anti-immigration movement, we're fucked. But I don't even think he means the anti-immigration movement. They mean the anti-immigration movement, which is a movement of people that vast majority wouldn't necessarily be racist if they had another explanation as to why they can't afford a home. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, you could imagine it's sort of that's more of that kind of nationalist project, the idea that, yes, I'm a person of color, I'm an immigrant, but I'm an Australian just like you. That's not what the neo-Nazis want. That's bad news. Recognizing our similarities across our class solidarity, that's death to the fascist movement. They don't want that. No, they want to differentiate these people because of the color of their skin and their, in their view, backwards or evil culture.
Yeah. And to be very clear, the Nazis are obviously the minority. Most people in Australia are far more likely to buy into that thing of, I don't mind people of color, I'm not racist or whatever. But they do have that thing that they're but why can't if there are thousands of people coming in and there's these long lines for rental properties, maybe that is a simple explanation. But
that's an argument that is repeated by one of the major political parties in this country. I mean, I don't know whether I'd necessarily put Labor. Labor has certainly bought into some xenophobic rhetoric and some policy making, but certainly the coalition, which is then echoed and repeated and backed in by the biggest media company in this country. So you can understand why that's the case.
Which is why, and I think this will surprise a lot of people, I just thought it was very fascinating that some of the organisers, who are probably those same organisers who are not the Nazis, who are maybe not keen on the Nazis being involved, or maybe it's the Nazis lying. I actually don't even know where this is from. But when Tony Burke, the Home Affairs Minister, denounced these protests and said they're un-Australian and they're divisive and blah, 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 the organisers' response to that was not, he's wrong, brown people are dirty and up the whites. It was, quote, he personally, Tony Burke, owns 6 properties. The policy his party is pursuing contribute directly to rising rents and housing shortages. How can the public he is supposed to represent accept vile criticism from someone who profits from the very system he is overseeing? Wild. Should I be joining this rally? No, it's organised by Nazis. But
say what you like about the Nazis, at least they can say that negative gearing's fucked.
Oh, dear. Okay, probably end it there.
We're knights of the round table, we dance where we're able. We do routines, we call us scenes, the footwork impeccable. We dine well here in Camelot, we eat ham and jam and spamalot.
All right. For 3 days, business leaders, union chiefs, and bureaucrats were locked in the cabinet room, away from their phones and prying journalists, and fueled by sushi and sandwiches as they debated how to lift Australia's flagging productivity. That is some of the colour and excitement that we got from the ABC about this week's Economic Roundtable. Apparently, it went for 29 hours. There were 327 contributions. And we wanted to talk about it, find out what happened, and discover whether we should give a shit either way. So we are joined by a very special guest, a prominent economist. He's one of the few good ones, the executive director of the Australia Institute, and the author of a new essay called Dead Centre, How Political Pragmatism is Killing Us, which is fantastic. Dr. Richard Dennis, welcome to Serious Danger. Thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, thanks so much. And so exciting to hear what was served for lunch at the round table. But what I really want to know is, what were they wearing? What were they wearing?
That's right. Where is the fashion reporting from the round table?
Yes. Now, you wouldn't know what they were serving because you weren't there. You were all salty that the Australia Institute and your good self didn't get an invite to this wonderful event.
No, not at all. But to be clear, I'm happy the event went ahead. I think it could have been far more diverse in who they invited. I think the agenda could have and should have been much broader. But no, the role of a think tank is to put big ideas on the table. The role of democracy
just not the round table. Sorry.
Well, exactly. But see, democracy requires this skill that I don't possess, which is the ability to sit in a room for 3 days listening quietly while people go through set-piece plays. So, no, I'm excited that a lot of the Institute's research and a lot of our ideas were reflected in the conversation around the summit. But to say I dodged a bullet would be an understatement. I don't think anyone who knows me thinks, Richard would be good in a room for 3 days listening quietly.
You can buy your own sushi, I guess. Yeah. I mean, can you talk a little bit about the way these summits are used sometimes as political theatre? It seems like it seems to me that they have these sort of summits and discussions to build consensus, to get a bit of momentum for change, and we saw that in the first term of the Labor government. You had the Jobs and Skills Summit, which kind of resulted in IR legislation, which I think we all agree had some really good reforms, some pro-worker stuff, legislation that was improved by Greens amendments, for the record, but. Yeah, is it clear what the government is kind of going for or why they're holding this roundtable in the first place?
It's clear why they're holding it. They are trying to open up the space for debate. It's not clear yet where they want to land it, but, this is coming from someone who's notoriously cynical and notoriously optimistic. I see green shoots in this because the most positive way to put it is that the Prime Minister is in his first term and already in this term quite adamant, indeed proud. I do what I say what I do. What matters is the promises I took to the election. That's my agenda. I have no other plans. So if that were the case, if they had no other plans, if they were only going to do the things that announced during the election, then there would be nothing less productive than having a productivity roundtable to talk about new ideas. So by definition, if you read the tea leaves as closely as I do, by definition, the holding of a summit to say what else could we do is proof positive that the government will be doing new things in this term that it did not promise to do at the election, because you don't need to have a roundtable with the business community and the unions to get permission to do what the voters already gave you permission to do. So while I think a lot of the ideas put forward were complete crap, and I think some of them, like actually making the gas industry pay for the gas we give them for free, or reforming capital gains for people that own 20 or more houses, like sign me up. So I think there were some crap ideas, some good ideas, but again, you wouldn't have to hold a roundtable if you were only going to do what you'd already promised to do. So, woohoo, I'm optimistic about that bit.
God bless you. I mean, what about the ambition of that, I suppose, the scope of how much the roundtable could sort of consider things? Was that sort of kneecapped before they even begun? I thought, I read somewhere that everything had to be budget neutral, or budget sustainability was a massive priority, informing all the discussions. Stuff was suggested and then ruled out and kind of thrown away aside pretty easily, it seemed to me. That's how we were seeing things in the lead up to. What did you think about the scope or how much serious change was going to be debated there?
Well, look, to be clear, I don't think the scope was terribly ambitious. I think a lot of the people invited are not only deeply conservative in their politics, but deeply conservative in their worldview. But the real problem is a lot of people who were invited for advice are the people that gave us the advice that caused the problems that we've got, right? So ever since we created the Productivity Commission, which has kind of been pushing for tax cuts and privatisation and deregulation since its inception, ever since the Productivity Commission was created, productivity has declined in Australia. Okay? The whole neoliberal agenda, the idea that if we just cut taxes and if we just privatise some more services, things will pick up, has demonstrably failed, so much so that we're now having a productivity roundtable to talk about the crisis with productivity growth that has resulted from 25 years of listening to the Productivity Commission and Treasury. Yet who are the loudest voices at the roundtable? The people who gave all this bad advice. And then we even brought Ken Henry out of retirement, the former Treasury Secretary, to give us another dose of the advice that's led to this. And the unspeakable truth in terms of, the narrowness of this roundtable, the unspeakable truth is that a country like Sweden, where taxes are much higher than Australia, where their public sector is much bigger than Australia, indeed in Sweden their public sector accounts for half of their GDP, their productivity growth is double Australia's over the last 20 years. So did anyone going into the roundtable say, I think the problem might have been we cut taxes for rich people too much. I think we gave too many subsidies to the rich people. We privatised essential services, meaning that people now literally say things like it's their full-time job to navigate the NDIS system. Like, is anyone, is the Productivity Commission going, gee, did our advice actually help, or are we the bad guys here? So the roundtable was narrow. The participation was pretty narrow. You had loud voices like Sally McManus from the ACTU saying, what if we didn't give the gas away for free? Or, what if we curbed capital gains tax for people that own, 2 or more houses? So, there were good voices there. There were good ideas there. But frankly, most of the people in the room are the people that caused the problems that the roundtable admits we've now got.
Yes,
or benefiting from the status quo.
That's right. Like, not only the people like the commission or, the bureaucrats or whoever it was that has given the bad advice, but the actual organisations who have benefited from the bad advice and caused the problems themselves, whether it's the banks and the CEOs, the mining companies, like the property investment lobby that have land banked homes for profit rather than building and boosting supply. Like, I think that is very much worth noting.
Yeah, I mean, breaking news: captains of big business want tax cuts for big business. Hold the presses.
Yeah.
Do
they still want more?
We know that. Don't pay for their flights and give them sushi. We know that. We know what they're going to fucking say.
Well, exactly. They'll give it to us for free every morning on the ABC.
Yeah.
Yes. Do you want to run Richard through our conspiracy theory about the ACTU proposals and see where he lands that we discussed?
What was
on the
our
show?
conspiracy theory? Because I know that some people were theorising about it being a setup. Wasn't it? It was Tim Wilson, if I'm remembering correctly, saying that this was all a stitch up, that the ACTU would have met with Labor beforehand and said, okay, the ACTU are going to float these crazy ideas so that Labor can say no, like the 4-day work week, so that Labor can say no, and then they appear as quote unquote reasonable and pragmatic. And I kind of was somewhere in between, where I don't think that it's necessarily set up that way. But I do think that it's reasonable to say that the ACTU would be talking strategy with Labor, and that kind of more like what you're saying, Richard, that this is an opportunity for ideas to be floated that Labor doesn't want to be the first ones floating, because Albanese comes out of the election saying we're only going to do what was in our plan. And so they need an excuse or a way to kind of build to get ideas out there that they may pick up at a later date, if not coming directly out of this roundtable, and a way to say, oh, it came from there and there was this evidence and that's why we've decided now to do something new. That's my theory. Which conspiracy theory, if any, do you buy?
Oh, look, I don't think there's any conspiracy in suggesting that advocacy groups and members of parliament might meet behind closed doors to have honest conversations about where they're both at, what the obstacles to change might be, and indeed what their shared goals might be. So I think it would be naive to think that the ACTU even members of the Labor government haven't talked about some of these ideas. But the fact that they've already talked about it doesn't mean it's a stitch up, that things are inevitable. And, God, I'm sounding Pollyanna-ish here, but this is why I like democracy. It's not a setup. It's not a set-piece play. And the fact that some people might have already conspired to do some things doesn't mean either they'll, A, succeed in that, or B, they should succeed in that, or C, people listening today have no agency in influencing that. So I'd like to think that the unions have spoken to people in Labor and said, hey, look, we're going to push hard to get our members G'd up about the fact that it seems weird we can afford to give gas away for free to foreign companies, but we can't give childcare away for free to Australian parents. What if we taxed gas and gave parents free childcare? I hope that the union movement is talking to itself and to Labor about that. Yeah. I hope that Labor is saying, well, if you can convince enough people that's a good idea, we could do it. And I hope that people listening to this podcast think, oh, yeah, that's how democracy works. Because, because when we tell ourselves that it's all stitched up behind closed doors, we can be cynical, we can be smart, we can be clever.
Ordinary people's power.
We give it away.
Yeah.
We don't take it away, we give it away.
Yeah.
We okay, all those powerful people I hate, I'm giving them even more power. I'm outie. I guess don't do that.
The question remains to me though, do you think there's a serious appetite within the Albanese Labor government for something like a 4-day work week?
Look, I don't know. I think that a 4-day work week is hard politically. It's hard in some sectors. I mean, I don't think people pouring coffee are ever going to get paid to work from home 1 day a week. And I don't know that their employers will say, if you smile 20% harder each day, I'll give you 20% of the time off. It's really hard in the human-focused service sector. It's just really hard. Okay, so I get that people and look, 5 days is arbitrary, 4 days is arbitrary. 4 weeks holiday. How come we got that? Well, in Europe they often have 6. There's no right number for any of these things, but to be clear, rolling out policy change that affects literally millions of people in all sorts of industries and occupations is hard. I don't know what Labor's appetite for that is, but I think there's some appetite for it. But is there appetite to make the gas industry pay some more tax? I think there is. Is there appetite to reform negative gearing and capital gains tax for housing? Well, I know there is, because Labor took those changes to the 2019 election, right? And most of the current Labor front bench were on the front bench in opposition in 2019, literally publicly making the case for why we should rein in capital gains tax and why we should change negative gearing. So the thing about cabinet government is that, it's one in, all in. And if the current position is they're opposed to something, then everyone has to say they're opposed to it. But of course there are people in Labor who want to change capital gains tax for investment housing because they've proposed it themselves in the past. When will they break and say publicly that they're thinking about it again? Don't know, but I know for a fact that there are people there that want to do it because A, I've spoken to some of them, and B, they used to publicly be proud to say that.
Yes. Well, it's not like Labor MPs abandoned policies or principles at all. Maybe they do that because they're sensible centrists, as you know.
Well, indeed.
I want to talk to the actual problems that the Economic Roundtable was designed to address, and sort of our alternative progressive big vision, what that might look like. I think that's going to be the most interesting and big part of the conversation with you, Richard. But just very quickly, for someone who wasn't really paying attention, in basic summary, what, if anything, has come out of these 3 days of the Economic Roundtable that's worth knowing and taking note of?
Look, the short answer is the main thing to know is that there's big disagreement in Australia about what to do about the fact that productivity's declined. Usually we kind of hear that economists think we should all do something. Well, economists don't all agree on everything. They clearly don't. So what we should take out of the roundtable is that the ACTU thinks collecting more tax and spending more money on services would be good for productivity. I lean that way. And that big business groups think that cutting taxes and spending less money on people in need would be good for productivity. I don't think there's any strong evidence to support that. But what's exciting is that unlike the election campaign we just had, there's two big alternatives on the table. that we're actually here we are talking about the fact that there's differences of opinion. Do we want to be more like Singapore or more like Sweden? That's a big, interesting, important decision. There's been lots of talk about cutting red tape. Red tape, we need to cut red tape. Red tape's inefficient, don't you know? We need to cut red tape. Whereas just last week, I'm pretty sure the same group of people were saying, gee, I think we need more regulation in childcare. I don't think that childcare workers are regulated enough. So, this is how inane so much of our public debate about the economy is. People say this grandiose stuff like, oh, I think we should cut taxes. That would be good for the economy. Really? Which taxes? How come? I think we need less red tape and regulation. Really? So when the apartments getting built 10 years ago were so bad, the buildings were getting, sort of do not enter orders. We all stepped in to say
sinking into the ground.
Sinking into the ground. We stepped in to regulate the property developers to stop them building such shit houses. And now the same people are going, well, regulation doesn't come cheap, right? Yeah. So, let me break it down for you. Good regulation's good, bad regulation's bad, and we need to have a nuanced democratic debate.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah, I'm a specialist in this stuff. It's really complicated, isn't it? So guess what? Bad regulation's bad. Who knew, right? But what a property developer thinks is bad regulation and what a tenant thinks is bad regulation are radically different things. But there weren't a lot of tenants. There weren't a lot of tenants at the Productivity Roundtable saying, you know what I hate is having to spend a fortune on my electricity bill because someone built a shit building with no insulation and the worst window frames around, and that's unproductive for me to have to spend so much money heating my house. It would have been more productive for you to build this house properly once. But that voice was silent at the roundtable while, the wise people who caused most of this mess go, yes, regulation bad.
Yeah. Well, and I would say that the interests of a government should be in what is the regulation that works for the people of the country or the jurisdiction of that they are governing, and not the interests of the corporations, which are fundamentally their purpose is to make profit. That's why they exist. And so that's why it's frustrating that, those are the voices that are being centered. It is the construction it's the property industry who, thanks to, capital gains tax discounts and various concessions on so many levels, can sit on property, sit on land for years and years, sell it at a huge profit without fucking delivering anything. And then they can come to this roundtable and say the problem is that we couldn't build homes because it was just too expensive to make them livable, safe, accessible, maybe energy efficient, etc. And that's why we weren't building. It's nothing to do with the fact that we couldn't maximize we could maximize our profit another way. The government should then come in and say, well, okay, sure, maybe you couldn't maximize your profits, but our job is to look after people. And the fact that we're even considering that this is something that's now coming out of this roundtable apparently is just opting out of energy efficiency codes, potentially also is accessibility standards, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's wild to me.
Yeah. Oh, look, I couldn't agree more. And I always talk about our government, not the government, because it's ours, right? Us Australian citizens are the only people that get to vote for our government. Foreign companies literally don't get a vote. So when we say things like the government is controlled by big business, we just gave all our democratic power away. Young people should be furious about this stuff. But when they think that the government is this abstract thing, we're kind of training young people to sort of step back and think, oh, what's the point? So, the Productivity Roundtable is important because it shows that we are allowed to do things differently, but it also shows that our government is seeking a narrow range of views about what kind of changes we want. And the fact that the tenants union weren't there shows you that apparently we can talk about housing productivity without hearing about what would help 30, 40% of Australians who live in rental housing. So, these things matter. Who gives advice matters, but ultimately it's our representatives to our parliament that form our government. And if they're not listening to us, we should be angry about it. We should have high expectations of them. And to give you a sense of it, I mean, we talk about the housing crisis all the time. The houses are fine. The houses are fine. The houses are going up in value. The houses are happy. What we've got is an inequality crisis, not a housing crisis, right? The houses are fine. The people who own 2 or more houses are happy, right? It's not everyone's sad that house prices are going up, I promise you. The people that own 2 or more houses are over the moon at the so-called housing crisis. Yeah. So while we're kind of stuck down here going, I wonder what we can do about the housing crisis, the people who are causing the house prices to go up, and they're just popping literally French champagne corks saying, bring it on. So we live in a country that's building holiday homes for the holiday homeless. Like, we're not building homes for the homeless. Property developers don't work for poor people. Builders don't work for poor people. So what are the odds that if we deregulate some more, the property developers and the builders will wake up and go, wow, there's so little regulation now.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. They took all the red tape away. So now I'm going to build houses for homeless people.
Yeah.
I mean, fuck.
Come on, everyone. So a lot of that, so deregulating the housing construction centre. There was a lot of talk about AI and a national AI strategy. A lot of concerns about how much we regulate that as well. We obviously don't want to over-regulate that industry to avoid take-up, apparently, because that's going to change everybody's lives. There's a talk about a road user charge for electronic vehicles that's been thrown around. Environmental laws, this was quite concerning. Apparently coming in, everyone was worried about like whether or not the EPA is going to get up. Of course, now it seems like business say they are supportive of the idea of an EPA as long as the final say rests with the minister, which is like, gosh, I wonder what happened recently that made business feel a lot more comfortable that the environment minister would sell the environment down the river. Ironic, the polluted river.
They're like, with this minister specifically, though.
Yeah, this guy.
It has to be Murray Watt
we
forever.
love this guy. Yeah. If Tanya gets back in there, she could fuck off. Although she approves him too.
Yeah, you're just pushing all my buttons of that. Look, let me go backwards through that. Imagine we set up a court system where you could go to court to, have disputes settled. But if you didn't like what the judge said, you just got to ring the minister and then the minister got to decide. I wonder who would want to create a court system where the final decision maker was the politician.
Yeah.
I wonder who would do that. I don't think most people on the street would think that they've got the phone number of the minister. No. The AI stuff was just wild. I mean, again, the Productivity Commission have spent decades saying that private property is the be-all and end-all, and that free markets are the kind of path to progress. Indeed, that free privatisation and free markets will give us productivity growth. Now they're saying, hey, artists, hey, writers, I think you should donate all of your intellectual property to foreign tech companies. That'd be good. Why don't you donate all of your property to a tech giant? Well, I don't know. What if rich people with 20 houses donated all their houses to homeless people? That might work, but I don't hear the Productivity Commission wanting to rely on donations of property when it comes to the housing crisis. So, look, and then electric vehicles. Oh, don't get me started. We have enormous taxpayer subsidies for those enormous big utes that dominate our roads. They didn't used to be on our roads. They didn't used to be common. They didn't used to be popular. They don't fill London. They don't fill Paris. They don't fill New York. All right. These enormous utes are on our road because we have enormous subsidies for them. And here's the Productivity Commission going, I think the problem might be those electric vehicle subsidies. It's like, oh, come on, kids, pick a lane.
Figure it out.
Great road analogy.
Yes, very
Thank
good.
you.
Pick a lane. And then there's a lot of talk about like maybe upping the GST. The last day of the roundtable was about potential tax reform. Nothing really, massive commitments there. Chalmers making a few noises in that respect. Is there going to be any change?
Teals? This was the Teals' great intervention,
yes,
right?
Wasn't Allegra
was
Spending
like
was
the
interested
GST.
in
like,
jacking the GST?
You guys, that's what you've got to offer. Okay, great. Thank you.
Did we get any clear idea of what's happening there, Richard?
Look, I mean, at the Australia Institute, it's kind of like shooting rats in a barrel, knocking this over. We've been knocking the GST should go up idea down for over 15 years now. It's really simple. There's no GST on private school fees. There's no GST on private health insurance. And if you salary sacrifice your car, there's no GST on your car. There's no GST on your petrol. There's no GST on your tyres. There's no GST on your maintenance. So, and if you like to go overseas on holidays, there's no GST on your overseas travel and there's no GST on all the shopping you do while you're over there. So rich people do a really good job of avoiding the GST. And every now and then you hear someone come out and say, I think we should increase the GST. And I say, great idea. Can we start with private school fees? And they run a mile.
Yeah, hang on.
So let's be clear, no one's going to increase the GST in Australia because the obvious thing to do first would be to put the GST on $50,000 a year private school fees. Not going to happen. The obvious thing would be to put GST on private health insurance. There's GST on your car insurance. Okay, there's GST on your house insurance. There's no GST on your health insurance. And guess what? High-income earners have health insurance. Low-income earners don't. So political power loves to say that poor people should pay more tax. And as soon as you counter with, how about we put the GST on the things rich people spend most of their money on? Whoop, whoop, whoop. The alarm goes off and they all melt back into the bushes. So don't worry, the GST is not going up. That said, the state governments need more money. We need to spend more on health. We need to spend more on education. And a simple solution to help the states out is for the Commonwealth to impose a new tax. And I think the obvious one is the ACTU's suggestion of a 25% tax on all gas exports. And I think what we should do is introduce a new tax on something we don't tax at the moment, and we should put all of that money into the bucket of money that we give to the states. And that way the states would have more money to spend on health and education, and it would be funded by a very efficient tax on an overwhelmingly foreign-owned industry that's actually causing climate change. So taxing the gas industry to spend more on health and education through the states, tick, 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 don't need to increase the GST to put more money into state government health and education spending.
And the Business Council doesn't like that idea. So what are you saying?
These are the kind of ideas that get you not invited to a productivity roundtable.
Oh, Nettie no friends over here. Okay. All right. Well, let's finish up here. There's more we want to talk to you. We could talk to you for a very long time indeed. But I suppose just coming back to the bigger question of productivity, as you mentioned at the start, there is a problem. There does appear to be some kind of sluggish levels of productivity in the Australian economy. Though I feel like I hear two things. I hear that there's a crisis and it's been stagnant for a decade and that's no good. Then I hear more progressive voices telling me, well, productivity growth has grown consistently for a very long time. It has outstripped wages. So Australian workers have been working harder and smarter for either the same or less pay, all while corporate profits soar and the number of billionaires has been doubling. So could you just clarify for us the truth in respect to that and what's going on with that debate?
Yeah, according to top secret data hidden on the Australian Bureau of Statistics website, productivity growth has declined. It has. And there's a whole range of reasons for that. There's a whole range of things we can do about that, if we want to. And so I think we can and should try to boost productivity growth. I think we can and should do that. But we also need to look backwards and say, okay, what happened to the productivity growth we did have? Who benefited from that? And it's quite clear that a lot of the productivity growth has just gone to a higher share of profits and a lower share of wages in Australia. So the Productivity Commission approach, the Treasury approach, the Business Council of Australia approach to the public debate is to say, look, let's start with, we all agree we should boost productivity. Can we all just agree on that? And we'll figure out who benefits from that second. All right? No, there's an important conversation. You're right, Richard. You're right. We should talk about distribution. But can we first agree that we'll just increase productivity? Like, let's bake more cakes. Can we all agree more cakes is better than less cakes? Come on, let's all agree we'll bake more cakes. And I'm like, well, will I get any more cake? Yeah, probably. But, let's get the cakes baking first, and then we'll figure out who gets the share of the cake second, and then, whoops, we never get around to that distribution piece of the cake puzzle. So, yes, productivity is growing slower than it used to be. Yes, we should talk about how to increase it. It's still growing, but at a much slower rate than it used to grow. Right. And it's growing at a much slower rate than it is in Sweden. Right? That's my point before. They've got a big public sector, they've got high taxes, and their productivity is growing at twice the rate that it is here in Australia. So I would say, well, if we want to be more productive, why don't we go look at the countries whose productivity is growing so fast? What lessons can we learn from Sweden? What lessons can we learn from Norway? What lessons can we learn from Denmark? What are they doing that we could copy from? Shh, Richard, don't be asking that question. Don't you know we've had tax cuts and privatisation and deregulation for 25 years. It hasn't worked yet. In fact, we all agree it's made it worse, but maybe another 25 years of it and we'll really get this ship going. Yeah, maybe. Or maybe we're getting the bad advice from abject failures.
And a good example of that, I think, and I do actually think that Daniel Wood from the Productivity Commission did mention the lack of business investment being a big reason for the sluggish productivity. And so the way that works is something like stock buybacks, right? You give a corporate company tax rate like Trump did in the US, and the companies, rather than taking that extra money they have to reinvest in their business to make it more productive, they say, no, we'll just buy back our own shares to boost our own profits, right? It's the least productive thing in terms of doing what the company is set up to do, but it boosts profits. So, of course, corporations, as machines designed to maximize profits, they're absolutely going to do that every single time.
Spot on. And again, that's why things like having a 50% capital gains tax discount, there's a hint in the name, discount, there's a sale going at Kmart, right? There's a discount on income that comes from capital gain. So, yeah, when you can engineer stock buybacks to drive up to return capital to shareholders and push up share prices, our tax system says, great idea, do that. And similarly in Australia, all these capital gains tax on investment housing is driving huge investment in houses, not in building new houses, in buying old houses off each other all the time. And a huge amount of investment is going into second-hand houses. And the opportunity cost, the consequences for the economy is that's money that could be spent in new factories. It could be spent on new machines. It's money that could be spent on renewable energy. Or, in Australia, you could either invest in a new wind turbine or you could buy some dodgy carbon offsets. Guess what? In Australia, we're leading the world in dodgy carbon offsets. Well, every $1 billion spent on a fake financial instrument is $1 billion that wasn't spent on a real source of renewable energy. So, yeah, you bet we need to drive new investment, but there's lots of ways to do that. And unfortunately, what happens at debates like this is everyone's like, oh, we need to have more private sector investment. Okay, how do we do that? Oh, you got to cut taxes. Oh, okie doke. Oh, I guess I just have to accidentally help all the wealthy, powerful people first, and then they might go and invest in something and the benefits might trickle down.
Come on.
Productivity will trickle down.
Basic economics, Richard. You should know this stuff.
Yes.
Oh, I'm an idiot.
Econ 101, Richard.
Yeah.
Look it up,
Yeah.
mate.
Yeah. Well, Econ 201 says watch this space because just because a tax rate could lead to more investment doesn't mean it will lead to more investment. These people have got very good at dressing up their self-interest as national interest. They've got very good at saying, I don't really want a tax cut. No, it's not for me. I just want to help you. So if you give me a tax cut, like I don't need it. I'm already rich. But what it might incentivize me to do is help you. So I'm willing to take the pain of my tax cut for me. I'll do that for you. I mean, who falls for this? Answer, successive governments in Australia. But not in Sweden, not in Denmark, not in Norway. That shit don't fly over there. Yeah. And that's why people need to get angry and say, hang on, why is my representative falling for this nonsense? And worse, why is my representative who I voted for, why are they trying to feed this to me? That's where our power comes in.
Bloody oath. Great questions. We might leave it there. Thank you very much, Richard Dennis. Quick plug, you can find Richard's new essay, Dead Centre, How Political Pragmatism is Killing Us. It's out now in Vantage Point. We'll put a link in the show notes if you want to order yourself a copy. And Richard is on a book tour at the moment. This coming Monday, August 25th. He's going to be in Newcastle. On Tuesday, he's speaking at Customs House in Sydney. And on Monday, September the 8th, he's going to be speaking at the Melbourne Museum in Melbourne, Naarm. All the details, once again, will be in the show notes. Thank you, Dr. Richard Dennis.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
No, on second thoughts, let's not go to Camelot. It is a silly place.
Thank you, Richard Dennis. What a cool guy. Good luck to all future roundtables. Quick call to action. Of course, today is the day, the National March for Palestine, the good rally, everybody. Chances are, if you're listening to this, you may well be planning on going along. I really hope so. I'm going to be out there riding my little bike and joining, hopefully, hundreds of thousands of people across Australia saying that, enough is enough. We need to sanction Israel. We need to end the two-way arms trade. And we need to stop the genocide. So solidarity to everyone. Thank you so much to all the people who organize these things every goddamn week. You're heroes.
Massive.
And you're fantastic.
Absolutely.
Do you have a position? Do you think that people should go to the racist rally like as counter protests? Like, I know there's a building consensus around that, or what do you think about that? Is that a whole other conversation?
Not as counter protest. Although I understand the need to like resist the far right and be like Nazis are bad and point out that they are Nazis. So do that, I guess. Sorry, I hadn't thought about it too much, to be honest.
That's all right.
If you want to support the show, please tell someone about it, share our clips on social media at Serious Danger AU, and leave us a 5-star review wherever you're listening, and tune in again next week. We will be in your ears then.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Serious Danger Australia.